everybody, this is Carla, and last week I finished binge watching Stranger Things. It's a show from Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it's been online since July. What the hell are you waiting for? Don't be a lazy ass like me who takes forever to binge watch her shows. Anyway, I finally finished it. I watched it in the whole thing in like 3 days, honestly. It was only the last episode that took me a little while. But this show is so binge-worthy, I can't even put it into words. I went through it lightning fast, and all I have to say is, oh my god, you guys, I love this show so much. I adore Stranger Things, okay? In 3 days, it basically became my favorite show of the last, I don't know how many years. It's amazing, and so, it's such a geek show. It's definitely directed towards geeks, toward nostalgia, toward the love that we have for 80s movies and 80s shows. I thought, what better than to review it? I know I'm like 6 months too late for this. It's not new anymore and I should have gotten to it a long time ago. I just didn't have time. But now I have watched it and I have to review it just because I need to talk about the show with someone. Okay, I need to vent my feelings out because I have too many feelings inside of me. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm going to review Stranger Things Season 1. It's up on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, go watch it before you watch this video because there will be spoilers for sure. Absolutely, there will be spoilers. I cannot contain myself in that situation.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
So be sure to go and watch it. It's only 8 episodes. It's actually a really fast watch. So go ahead and watch it and then come back and watch this video. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna start my review, but first, I'm gonna finish my waffle. Full disclosure, this isn't actually an Eggo. My family buys a different brand, but I still like it. They're good waffles. Please, 11, don't melt my brain for not having Eggos in my fridge. Oh, it's so good. Okay, now I can review the show. So, I'm gonna divide this review into a few different aspects just because this show, there's so much about it that I love that I just have to mention everything. So first I'm gonna start with the production value of the show and the effects. And this was one of the things that struck me first because the whole show looked like a movie. And I keep thinking back on it and thinking of it as a movie when it's actually a TV show. But that just goes to show how much production values for TV have gone up in recent years and how much Netflix can do with a budget that's not terribly high. They can still make these shows look like movies while not necessitating a Game of Thrones sized budget. So I think that's always a plus for Netflix and it's definitely a plus for this show. I felt personally like I was transported to the 80s. Here's the thing with Stranger Things for me. I was born in the 80s, of course. I was born in the mid-80s though. So I don't have many memories of actually living through the 80s. I was a kid. I turned 5 years old in 1990. So I don't necessarily consider myself like a child of the 80s. I feel like all my formative years were spent in the 90s. So I've always been more of a 90s kid in my head. But that's not to say that I don't love the 80s. The thing with living in freaking Narnia is that we get everything late here, or at least we used to. Now with the internet it's a little better, but back in the day we used to get everything late. Also, my mom was studying in the United States at the beginning of the 80s, so in the early 80s, and she was really into the culture, into the music, into the movies. So that combined with the fact that we only were getting like movies way late here, or TV shows way late here because we needed to have cable and we didn't have it, so we only could see local reruns and those took forever. So in a sense I was still in the 80s while the 90s were happening. So I've always been really attuned to 80s culture. I love, my favorite movies are 80s movies. My favorite music is 80s music. That I've always felt like a bit of a mishmash of the 80s and the 90s just because of the timing where I was born. So my friends who had watched Stranger Things when it came out in July were hounding me to watch this thing. They were all like, oh my god, the nostalgia, Carla, you're gonna love it, you have to watch this show. And I figured, okay, if the only value it has is nostalgia, then it's probably not a good idea, because I don't like nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia. Okay, I want something that is good now, but that also evokes the nostalgic feelings. So I was a little iffy about that. But then eventually my friends convinced me. I added it to my list of shows to watch, and I got to it only now. So the thing that struck with me the most, and I think this is probably what got me hooked on the show in the first place, is that as soon as it started, it wasn't just like nostalgia. It was like I was transported to the 80s. I felt like I used to feel when I was watching those shows and watching those movies when I was a kid. That was incredible. I had yet to see a show or a movie set in the 80s that actually managed to just take me back. It's like I wasn't here anymore, I was back then. And I love that. I think that was probably what hooked me into the show from the beginning. And I'm talking not just that it was the 80s, but I mean the good 80s. This show is not an 8-hour long Robin Sparkles video. It's not like bright colors and Cyndi Lauper songs. It's the good 80s, the gritty 80s, the real 80s, the ones that the people actually lived and not the commercial version of the 80s. So I really love that. Town of Hawkins felt gritty, it felt very unglamorous, it felt real. And I love that. It hooked me up from the beginning. As far as the effects go, I think the Demogorgon, the monster, was really scary when it was clouded in darkness. Like at the beginning of the series, in the first few episodes when we saw it, it was really dark. And that helped a lot for the ambience of the monster, and it made him more scary. In the last episode, when we actually get to see it walking around in the light, not so much. I mean, it was at that point where I went like, oh, okay, it's a TV show with TV show effects. That's not to say that it was bad. It's much better looking than many TV shows that I have seen in the past. Doctor Who. But you could still tell this is not a movie. You know, it's a movie would make a better monster, but still, I loved how they used it, because it wasn't until the very last episode that we actually got to see that. So for the first 7 episodes, I was like entranced and freaking terrified by this monster. So good job on that. As far as set design, I adored the design for the Upside Down. It was amazing. I mean, it was scary, it was shadowed, it was wet, it was disgusting. It was almost like something out of the set of Alien. And it's just basically everything that makes a location perfectly terrifying while still being a mirror of our real world, which makes it even scarier. So I loved that. It was incredible. And then what little effects they had apart from that were excellent. For example, when Eleven flips the ban, that's going to remain like one of my favorite scenes of any TV show ever for a long time, because I loved that scene. Holy jeebus, that was epic. I loved it. I loved it so much. As far as the cinematography goes, like I was saying with the monster, I think the scary moments, the tense moments, were perfectly framed. This wasn't a show that was meant to be a horror show per se, but it knew when to use the suspense, it knew when to use the horror movie angles to make things more chilling, and the lighting and everything. It really reminded me of the X-Files, strangely enough, when the X-Files was on its good days, so at the beginning. It really reminded me of that, especially the opening scene was incredible, and I got chills. The one at the lab when the guy, it's taken by the monster from above, that screamed X-Files to me. Early X-Files, so I was into that for sure. My only complaint with the framing and the darkness is that some scenes were a bit too dark. So in a sense, like for example, when Will was getting kidnapped, I didn't get to see anything really until he got to the shed and the light went on, and I saw his scared face, and I was like, okay, something is there. But before that, I didn't know what was happening when he was in the forest and he was running. I was like, what's going on? I could only go by sound because I couldn't see anything. This might just be my TV, but still, it doesn't really help. I could just understand the scene by association. That said, the locations were beautiful. I know that many shows are filmed in Atlanta, as this one was, and it's incredible to me how different they all look, even though they're filmed in the same place. One funny thing is that I didn't recognize the cliff where Finn jumps and where they find Will's body. That cliff is the same cliff they used for the hanging tree song scene in the Hunger Games Mockingjay, and it totally went over my head. I didn't even realize it because they filmed it here from different angles, so it didn't look exactly the same. And when I read that online after I finished watching, I was like, oh my god, that's totally true, it's the same cliff. But still, it's the same quarry, but still it looks completely different, and I love that. And it really looked beautiful. It really looked like a town that people lived in, so that was great. 80s references are my favorite thing in this show. I was wary of them at the beginning, but as soon as I started watching, I was like, dude, it all feels so natural, so organic that I can't complain. I loved it. I started getting chills every time they mentioned something. Here's what you need to understand. Stand By Me is one of my favorite movies of all time. I rewatch that movie at least once a year. I adore Stand By Me. It's one of my favorites ever. And when they were walking through the train tracks, I kept getting chills, like at random moments, like nothing was actually happening, they were just talking to each other, and I kept going like, oh my god! Because the train tracks made me feel so happy, just knowing that it was an homage to Stand By Me. I got chills, I loved it. But still, the references weren't so ambitious that they seemed like pandering. It was very well balanced, and that's a very hard thing to do, so I was really surprised by that. And now that I think about it, that's kind of the perfect description for this show. If I have to give it a description, Stand By Me meets The X-Files. #win. Moving on, the pace of this thing, haha, pun intended, the pace of this show was incredible. There was not one scene that I felt was out of place or unimportant or boring. Even the scenes that didn't actively contribute to the plot, they still seem to endear us to the characters even more, and that is incredible. I can't even think off the top of my head of one scene that I would have cut out. It's been a long time since that has happened to me. As far as the plot lines go, first off, because I cannot have one video without mentioning the X-Men. I know, it's a sickness. First off, I have to say, bonus points for all the X-Men references. Yes! I loved it. I loved that the kids loved it. I loved everything that had to do with the X-Men references in this show. It was fantastic. I had a smile on my face the entire time. Yes, 11 is totally Jean Grey. She actually Dark Phoenix the Demogorgon at the end. I love that. That alone already makes this show the most amazing show in recent times. And that's apart from everything else that's good from this show, so I just loved it. Another thing I loved about the way they structured their plot lines is that a lot of the things that they set up at the very beginning of the show don't pay off until much later, like almost the end. Like, for example, the walkie-talkies, the fact that Will has a walkie-talkie too, the cliff that Hop says, hey, this guy says he jumped, and Hop is like, nope, you can't survive from that height, and then way later Finn actually has to jump. The whole thing with 11 making things fly. I mean, she first levitates the Millennium Falcon, which, by the way, another Prime reference. She levitates the Millennium Falcon, and you kind of forget about it. You know that she can move stuff with her mind, but she doesn't actually make things fly all that much. So you kind of forget about it. And then when Finn jumps the cliff, you're like, oh, that's right, she can make stuff fly. Nice. Normally, those things are very hard to do, because then it just seems like a throwaway and people forget about it, and then when it comes back people are like, wait, what happened? But they did it very well. It also helps that the show is short, so it's not like you have to think about stuff that happened 20 episodes earlier, but it was really well done. As a writer, I appreciate that so much. Another thing that I appreciate as a writer is just the fact that all the subplots came together at the end. It kind of blows my mind, because I was expecting the Nancy and Jonathan thing to just disappear at some point, because it didn't seem as important, but they actually involved Nancy in the plot well enough that by the time episode 7 came around and all the players are coming together and they managed to actually make sense of the whole puzzle given the individual parts that they knew. It's mind-blowing to me. It's incredible. It's probably a lot of the reason why the Bathtub, which is episode 7, is my favorite episode of the show. But also, science! Come on, even Steve, for fuck's sake. His redemption, they totally added that in like very late in the game just because the actor was very charismatic and people were actually liking it, but it wasn't planned. They weren't planning on that. They added it in later and it still managed to work so well. The moment in the buyer's house when he comes back to help Nancy and Jonathan, that's one of my favorite moments of the season. It's a freaking Big Damn Heroes moment of epic proportions, and it was added in last minute, basically. It blows my mind how good that was. Now we get to the meat of the thing where I talk about the acting and the characters. I have to say that Mike is my absolute favorite character in the show. I am in love with Finn Wolfhard, and I mean that in a totally non-creepy way. God, stop thinking about it that way. I think he's the cutest kid ever. I actually want to give him a plaque that says cutest kid ever. That's saying a lot, because that is the distinction I don't just award to any kid. I think it was probably held by like Logan Lerman back in the day, and yes, I am that old that I still remember back when Logan Lerman was just a little kid. Finn is the cutest. Mike, I love Mike. I love Mike so much. I can't even put it into words. I also adore Dustin. Gator Matarazzo steals every scene he's in effortlessly. That kid is so cute, so funny, so adorable. I love him to death. And I don't mean that just as a comic relief either. Dustin has a lot of moments where he's actually the voice of reason. He's actually the one making sense of things and separating his emotion and his friend's emotions from what's actually happening in order to make sense of that, and that's amazing. I could go on forever because you know what? These kids give me life. Okay, it's incredible because you know a show is good when the adult performances knock it out of the park, and yet the child actors still manage to trump that. Those kids make everything. I already stated how much I love Stand By Me. I love Stand By Me not because of the plot, not because of the ambience, it's because of the cast. And because of those kids who just make you feel so many things, and Stranger Things has exactly that. I love the kids. They are my babies. I just adore them. It has a lot to do with the fact that I seem to love shows that have a group of kids / teens / young adults in the lead. That's probably why I love young adult fiction so much in general. I don't know. And this show was the perfect example of that. I mean, these 5 kids have now become my babies. There's no going back from that, okay? I will love them until my dying day. I mean, my precious baby's too pure for this world. I can't handle it. And that alone makes this show my favorite without even me realizing it. It's amazing. I do also have to mention though that Millie Bobby Brown is going to be huge in the future. Just watch out for her. I mean, mark my words, she's going to be huge. And I mean that in terms of fame and talent, not in terms of size, you dolt. She's going to have such an amazing career. That girl has some chops. I mean, come on. She's so cute and bubbly and happy and sassy in real life. And Eleven is so different from her, and yet she still pulls it off so magnificently. I can't even handle it. That level of talent, it's out of this world. I did also love the adults though, I have to say. I loved Hopper's storyline, where he goes basically from being completely detached about everything in his grief and being just such a mess to realizing that something was terribly wrong here, and then putting his all into the search for Will, because it's sort of a way to make up for not being able to save his own daughter. For me, that said a lot. I can't wait to see what they do with him next season. And then Winona Ryder. Winona Ryder, you guys! Growing up in the 80s and 90s, Winona Ryder was one of my idols. I loved her so much. I mean, come on. Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, and then Little Women. Little Women is my favorite book of all time. It's at the top. I have read that book like 40 times in my lifetime, no joke. And I'm only 31, so it's not even like once a year, it's more than that. I love Little Women. The 1994 movie adaptation of Little Women is like one of my favorite movies of all time. And Winona Ryder was so great as Jo March. I mean, Jo March is my idol. Jo March is the character that I used to say, hey, when I grow up, I want to be like her. And Winona Ryder inhabited Jo March so well. And it was such a great performance. She even got nominated for an Oscar. She was that good. So I know, since I was a kid, how talented and how amazing Winona Ryder can be. And it's such a pity that her career kind of went to the dumps for a long time. So I just seeing her in that role in Stranger Things, having such a comeback and such a strong performance at the same time, I'm so overjoyed for her and for me, because hey, I get to see Winona Ryder in something amazing again. She deserves every credit she gets for this. I know a lot of people can't really see past, Winona Ryder. I'm not one of those. Joyce Byers got me from the beginning. I think she deserves every honor that comes her way. I know she was just nominated for a Golden Globe a few days ago. I'm so glad. I'm so happy for her. I love her. I can't wait to see her in season 2. Her performance was so amazing that I can't even put it into words, honestly. Now we come to the shipping. Because yes, even horror-oriented shows have shipping in them. And Stranger Things is not an exception. I have to admit, I have spent the last 4 days watching Mike and 11 fan videos on YouTube. I am shameless. I regret nothing. I mean, let's just say everything. It's been 4 days. 4 days. And the time that I should have spent working, I spent watching shippy videos. Hi there, new OTP! That's all I can say. And P.S. if your fandom doesn't have at least one video to Cold Place fix you, you're doing fandom wrong. That's all I'm saying. And for everybody who just rushed to the comment section right now to yell in my face and rant about how, oh, they're just 12. How can you ship them? That's so sick. Ew. Just chill, okay? I'm not like writing smut fanfiction up to 12-year-olds. I'm just saying their puppy love is cute, okay? 12-year-olds with crushes are cute. I don't know where that relationship is going to go. I don't even know if it's going to reach a point where it actually becomes a relationship. I'm just saying I found them cute. That's what happens. And I reserve the right to go, oh, every time they're on screen together, because that's what the show wants me to do. So shh, stop complaining. I was also a little upset that Nancy went back to Steve, because okay, so he's not a complete jerk-ass. He does get redeemed by the end in the last 2 episodes, and it was a good redemption too. It came from within him. It wasn't something like, oh, somebody forced him or anything. It was good, but I had still hoped that Nancy would be wary of how fast that turn came in him. Even when he wasn't graffitiing half the town to call Nancy a slut or getting into fights with Jonathan, even when he wasn't, he was still a bit of a snob, in that way that popular kids are. I would hope that Nancy was a bit wary of those snobbish, arrogant tendencies. I don't know if that changed as well in his case. I was hoping that she wouldn't go back to him, but hey, she's 15, so I guess it's understandable up to a certain point. I hope for her sake that he did change, but I guess we'll see. And while I do ship her with Jonathan, I also understand that they'd only really been hanging out for like 4 days, so it would have been way too fast if they had actually gotten into a relationship right after that. So I don't know. I mean, still, I hold on to hope for next season, because I really do think that Jonathan is a stand-up guy. I love the way he treats his little brother. I love the way he looks out for his family. And yes, he's not perfect. He did take pictures of her. He shouldn't have. That was wrong and awful, and he shouldn't have done that. But he knows that now. He's learned that lesson. Much like Steve learned his lesson, hopefully. So, I don't know. I do think that she should be with Jonathan. I guess I'll just wait and see until season 2. If they do a good job with Steve, it might not actually hurt so much if she doesn't get together with Jonathan. I don't know. I guess we'll see how it goes. Now I'm going to move on into a bit of the negatives and maybe some loose ends and some speculation of what might happen in season 2. I think the main negative that anybody has in this show is one that I have to bring it up, like straight up, and it has a name. It's Barb. Everybody complains about Barb, I'm just saying. Now, it didn't bother me so much because of Barb herself, but just because it felt like lazy writing. Why did nobody report her missing? Where was her mother? We saw her mother in one scene, then nothing again. Why did the police not initiate a town-wide manhunt for her like they did for Will? Like, it feels lazy. So yeah, it's not that I was particularly attached to Barb, but I do see what people are saying. It was kind of the only plotline that went nowhere, except to give Nancy motivation to look for the Demogorgon, I guess, but it still felt like they just forgot about Barb, so I have to point it out. Other things that I didn't really understand. Why did they kill that restaurant cook at the beginning of the show? I mean, they killed him, but they didn't kill anyone else. Like, they spoke to the professor at the school, the teacher at the school. They just let him go. They didn't kill him at all. They spoke to Finn's parents. They just let them go. They didn't kill them. So it seems almost sloppy that they would just come and kill that one dude instead of trying to give him the runaround so that he doesn't suspect anything. And then they just leave him there. It's like, it feels very sloppy. If you're government agents, you're not necessarily just leaving bodies left and right for the police and curious people to find them. It seems very sloppy to me, so I didn't like that. That said, I do still have questions that I feel that weren't answered. Like, for example, why was the monster's hive inside the school? Joyce and Hop go to the school and that's where they find Will. Why was it in the school? I didn't get it. I would have thought that it would have its hive like in the forest or something. But is that significant? Is it significant that both Joyce and the kids were in the same place in two separate dimensions at the same time? I don't understand. Also, why was the plush toy that belonged to Hop's daughter in Castle Byers in the Upside Down? Is that supposed to tell me something? Because I generally just assume that Hop's daughter died because of her sickness, right? I guess she had cancer or something. I don't think they ever said. I assumed that was the truth. But then Hop goes into Castle Byers in the Upside Down and finds his daughter's plush toy there, which is what prompts the flashbacks. But they never explained if it really was the plush toy there or if it was just a figment of Hop's imagination because he was thinking of his daughter. I didn't understand, so I would have liked for them to explain that, because if the daughter was there, then that changes a lot of stuff. I'm just saying. And moreover, just after the end, they flash forward a month at the very end. And they don't really explain everything. They don't really explain anything, honestly. But everybody seems really normal. So what did they tell the town that happened? Because obviously something happened. They can't just explain away all the disappearances and the fact that Will came back after they buried him. What did they tell them? Do the Wheelers know, for example? Because I would have assumed that, honestly, after the government comes into your house and tells you that your son is in deep, deep danger, I don't think any excuse would, be acceptable. And of course, I would assume that Mike would be, grounded forever. But at the same time, how do you explain that? I mean, how do you explain that danger? And how do you explain that all the government agents that came to your house are suddenly dead? How do you cover up something that big? I mean, how do they explain the fact that they had Will's body, quote-unquote body, and they buried it, and then all of a sudden Will comes back to life? How did they explain that? Are they saying that they buried Will alive by mistake, or what? I don't know how anybody would explain that. And how does the mess in the school get explained away? Because obviously that's what's not opening the next day, because it's full of blood and bodies and stuff. And it's like, how do you explain that away? I don't think a gas leak would be enough, because I remember one of my favorite shows is Haven, and in Haven they just basically waved it all away. Like, oh, gas leak, gas leak, gas leak. Like every other week they had a gas leak when something was actually happening, something supernatural. So I don't think a gas leak is going to cut it for the school. I don't know. I wish they had explained a bit more, especially since Hopper had to keep his promise not to say anything. How did he explain it? Now, here's my hope for season 2. I hope that there are no love triangles between the kids, because I know that there's a new girl who comes in. I think her name is Max. She comes into town and she's a new main character. So I really do hope that this doesn't lead to some kind of love triangle. Please don't. Just don't. I really want to hear more about the previous test subjects, because we know 11 was the 11th, right? So where are 1 through 10 then? I want to know about that, and it seems like they're going that way, because one of the character descriptions that they've released seems to be pointing toward, one of the previous subjects. Now, my guess about Will is that he's incubating little Demogorgon babies inside his body. I don't know where that's going though, so I don't know. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, maybe Will turn, evil or whatever. I don't know. It would be cool, but I don't know if that's where they're going. Especially since we haven't seen the Demogorgon actually taking over anyone. So I don't know. Maybe his biology's being changed or something. You never know, but I guess we'll definitely see about that. And also, I kind of sort of maybe want Hop to adopt 11. Because why not? I think it would be sweet of him to have a child again, so I don't know, maybe. Obviously, after this season and after he apparently gave away her location to the bad guys, probably doesn't sound like a good thing. But I was hoping, and I hope that maybe season 2 can fix that, I don't know. That said, I was so happy that they confirmed that season 2 is a sequel, like a direct sequel to this, because I know that a show like this kind of lends itself to an anthology type continuity, like a Twilight Zone type thing where every episode is a whole new story. So as I was watching, I was feeling like, maybe this could work as like every season is a brand new story. But when I got to the end, I was so in love with these characters. I was so in love with the kids especially, that I just didn't want to lose them. I'm so glad that they're doing a direct sequel, because I cannot live without these kids in my life, okay? I cannot. It's physically impossible. I need them in my life. So I'm very glad that they decided to keep going with the same storyline. And hey, you never know, maybe Hawkins, Indiana can become the new Erie, Indiana, because yes, that's another thing that I used to see. It was one of the first things that went through my mind when I realized that the show was taking place in Indiana. I'm like, oh my god, it's Erie all over again. I can make jokes about the 90s too. And I just want to say that already the casting for season 2 looks amazing. I mean, come on. Sean Astin in an 80s inspired story? Yes, please. That's incredible. It's amazing. And, Paul Reiser and Dr. Montgomery, I love it already. In conclusion, I love this show so much. I love this show so much. My new favorite show ever. I love it. I will rewatch it 17,000 times before season 2 comes out. But when is season 2 happening? I need it like now. They said 2017. 2017 is in 18 days, guys. Maybe we'll get it January 1st. Okay, I know we won't. It's wishful thinking. It will probably be like in the summer at some point. But still, I need it. I need it. Netflix, please do me a solid here and just give it to us early. I just love this show, you guys. I love this show so much. Anyway, that's it for my review of Stranger Things Season 1. I will definitely come back with a review for Season 2 after it premieres at some point in 2017. As far as next week though, I am going to watch Rogue One this Sunday. So definitely you can bet that I will be talking about Rogue One in my next video next Friday. so stay tuned for that. But still, if you have any ideas for topics that you want me to talk about, any geeky topic from TV to books to movies, anything like that, feel free to leave a comment and suggest it over there. And if it's something that I know anything about, I will make sure to add it to my list of videos to make in the future. So get to that. In the meantime, you can find me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at girlsareweird with underscores between the words, and I am on Tumblr at girlsareweird with hyphens between the words. I have a Facebook page for this vlog at facebook.com/FreakingNarnia. If you're watching this video on Facebook, because I have now decided to start uploading my videos to Facebook directly instead of just linking to the YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook, please do take a moment to visit my YouTube account, maybe subscribe. It's the fastest way to actually get the video to you, and it also helps me because the views actually count on YouTube. Anyway, be sure to visit my Facebook page and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In fact, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to my channel down below. Also, you can visit my main website at FreakingNarnia.com. All my videos are up there in case you want to catch up with the videos I've made in the past. And also remember that I do have a Redbubble store where you can buy merchandise, which I make from typography art based on my favorite quotes from all my different fandoms. So you can use those quotes and that art in all types of merch, such as t-shirts, cups, computer covers, all sorts of stuff just to demonstrate your fandom. So be sure to visit my store. The link is down in the description. And maybe buy something while you're at it if you're in the mood. I don't know. It really does help me when people purchase my stuff, so please go ahead, give it a try. And that's about it for me today. I will see you guys next week with another video from all the way in freaking Narnia. And I will go now and get another waffle because I like waffles. So, bye guys. Don't melt my brain for not having Eggos in my pants. Science! I am in love with film warp. I am in love with film. Why can't I say his name? Golden Glove. That school is not opening the same day. Where one truth then with the keys, because the views actually count on Facebook. Yay, waffles.